All right. We're back on Talk Shoe, ladies and gentlemen. Chris Ransom here. Joseph Potter, William Yanish, one of them might be joining me shortly. If they do join, I'll get an alert, and I'm going to start breaking down these playoff games one by one, and then I'll break down what I think is going to happen in each subsequent round afterwards. All right. Rams and the Panthers. I am going to go with the Rams. I was one of the only people in the country that took the I was one of the only that took the Panthers back in week 13. And to prove it, I will screen share 13 for a second. I'm not going to go into a lot of details here, but the Panthers played the Rams right after Thanksgiving. It was right after Thanksgiving. The Rams played the Panthers. Me and William were the only two people in the country who took the Panthers. See, I had Panthers 27, Rams 24. This was back in November. This was back in week 13 when there's not much difference between week 13 and the wild card week. And now we're going to share this tab, and you'll see there's a very slight difference. Both teams are healthier now. William's the only one taking the Panthers to win. I'm the only one taking the Panthers to cover. Everyone else is picking the Rams. So why am I leaning towards the Rams? For starters, I don't believe Stafford is going to lose to the Panthers twice in one season. Second reason I'm going with the Rams is very simple. The Panthers barely got in the playoffs. Bryce Young's best game was his 442-yard game against the Rams in week 13. So, I believe, hold on, let me look that up. Let's see. Let's look at the Panthers Rams game. Bryce Young. Ekwonu was our player of the game. Okay. Ekwonu had 0 sacks, 0 quarterback hurries allowed. Ekwonu kept Jared Verse in check. That is basically why the Panthers won in week 13. And again, the reason I bring this up is because you look at what happened in the regular season. Verse is going to get pressures. The Rams are going to make adjustments. Verse is going to get pressures on Jared Verse is going to get pressures on Bryce Young this time around. The Rams are going to make the proper adjustments. And I like the fact that the Panthers have a healthier team this time around. Robert Hunt is coming back. J.C. Horn didn't play in the Week 13 meeting where the Panthers upset the Rams. So I think the Panthers have the talent to beat the Rams. I just don't think they're going to beat the Rams a second time in a row. I do have the Panthers taking the Rams to overtime. And I do think the fact the Panthers are healthier than the Rams compared to the first meeting, that's going to matter to a degree. But at the end of the day, it's an overtime game. It's Bryce Young's first playoff game. I just think Stafford's going to want it more. And the Rams, they're going to make the defensive adjustments needed. Because in order for the Panthers to beat the Rams again, they've got to have the same level of success they had in the first meeting. And on top of that, not only do the Panthers have to keep Burst in check, which I don't think they will a second time. They had like 3 interceptions on Stafford, I believe. No, Stafford threw 2 picks against the Panthers. He threw 3 against the Falcons. So, that's why I say That's why I say the Panthers are probably going to lose. And we're going out to lunch later today. I'm going out to lunch later today, so Matt Ryan has just been named the president of football operations for the Falcons. So Matt Ryan has been hired as the president of football operations for Atlanta. All right, I'm going to get to the next game because I will go through my entire playoff bracket. It would have been fun to break this down with William and Joey, but time is money. I got to be out of here by noon, 12:30. All right. Next game is Packers Bears. I'm going to go with the Packers to upset the Bears, and here's why. It's very simple. The Packers, I think, have more weapons to work with. They have more playmakers to work with. And I think these are the two best teams in the NFC. I do. I think the Packers and the Bears are the two best teams. I think these are the two best teams in the entire NFC conference. I do. So I'm looking at you know, Packers. I just think the Packers are a better team than the Bears. I mean, the fact that the Bears needed an onside kick to beat Green Bay when Jordan Love got injured, I think that says something. That doesn't mean the Bears can't win. Okay? I've been getting conflicting reports with these NFC games, but I think the Packers are going to win because Jordan Love has the playoff experience. He won as a 7 seed against the Cowboys 2 years ago, and I think this Bears team is less experienced than the Cowboys team. And I think the addition of Diggs is going to upgrade this secondary to the point where it puts Green Bay over the top. Now, Ozzie Trapillo is back at left tackle, and this offensive line looks incredible since Trapillo's been named the starting left tackle. DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, Dunze and Moore are both playing through injuries, whereas the Packers' weapons are fully healthy. Loveland and Cole Met have been both very good. So you got Swift, you got Kyle Monangai, your 7th round pick, Sweat, Deo Odeyingbo. Now you have Andrew. Now you have Jack. Now you have who is it? I think they have Deo Odeyingbo, Austin Jackson, I believe it is. This is interesting. Panthers pass. That's the thing. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I'm looking at here. You know, it's a pretty big detail because we went with Ekwonu as the player of the game in week 13. But on to the Packers Bears. I think the Bears being fully healthy is going to make this game more compelling. I've got the Packers winning 24-22. Here's what I think is going to happen. The Packers, they're going to hold the Bears to field goals in the first half. They're going to go up 17-9 at halftime. Then the Bears are going to get a touchdown in the third quarter and make it a 1-point game. It'll be 17-16 entering the fourth quarter. So yeah, Joey, just to be clear, I'll quickly recap what we'll get to Packers Bears in a second, but I'll quickly recap what happened. We both have the Rams winning. My score is 26-20. The last time the Panthers won was because Stafford had 3 turnovers, 2 picks, and Bryce Young played turnover-free football. But the other thing I pointed out in Mo's report is he didn't acknowledge Ekwonu, and Ekwonu kept Jared Verse to 0 sacks. That's
Well,
not going to happen again. Verse make the proper adjustments. I think the Rams are going to play far better defensively, but the Panthers are healthier both at offensive line with Robert Hunt coming back and at corner. J.C. Horn didn't play in the Week 13 matchup. So I think this game will be more defensive minded, but I like the Rams in overtime 26-20.
you also have to look at there may be a bigger story that Shula, their defense coordinator, is up for head coaching job. So Shula may be coaching with more motivation than he has all year right now. So if that happens, now the Rams may be looking for more blood than they normally would defensively. So there's also that to consider.
The over-under is 46.5, and 50% are taking the over, 50% are taking the under. Unless 51% is taking the under, I always go with the under on these over-unders unless 51% is taking the under because of how the game's evolved the last few years. And in this situation, I believe the Rams will win, but it'll be a close game by both teams because Panthers are healthier now versus week 13. But I also think the Rams are going to make those defensive adjustments, not just from a player's standpoint, but from a coaching standpoint as well, like you mentioned. So, and Verse is not going to get held in check, zero hurry, zero pressure, 0 sacks again against Ekwonu. These were both first round picks. These are both, I think, guys that played in the ACC. Ekwonu, 22 first round pick NC State, Verse 2024 first round pick Florida State. I think these guys went against each other during Verse's freshman year. So I could be wrong on that, but no, because Verse was 22, 23. 23 was his junior year in college, 22. So yes, 21 was his freshman year. So yeah, Ekwonu, they may have faced each other one time during Verse's freshman year. And it seems like Ekwonu's had his number at both the college level and the pro level, but that's going to change eventually since Verse is a star. So is Ekwonu, but, at the same time, I don't know if he's as motivated as he was in the regular season. We'll see. If he is, the Panthers can have a chance, but the other thing is Ekwonu, not only did he keep Verse from getting any pressures, Carolina had 40 carries, 160 rushing yards against the Rams in the first meeting. That is probably not going to happen again in this game. I would imagine the Rams run defense, they're going to make the proper adjustments. And like you said, the defensive coordinator on the Rams, Chris Shula, I believe, is up for a head coaching job. That's the name. But the Packers Bears game, I know everyone's a lot of people are picking the Bears. I took the Packers. I just think the Packers have the weapons at wide receiver. If Love plays a great game, avoids turnovers, they have the weapons to outscore the Bears. And how I think this game is going to go, first half, I've got Green Bay up 17-9. Bears get a touchdown in the third quarter at 17-16. Packers get a Josh Jacobs touchdown to go up 24-16. Bears get a touchdown at the end, but fail to get the 2-point conversion to tie the game. And that's how the Packers barely cover the spread. But the money line for this game is minus 115 plus 105. It's pretty even. It's about as close to 50-50 as you can get, Joey. So I think that says something. And I'm going to take the Packers simply because they've done this as the 7 seed before. They've pulled off the upset. The Bears needed the onside kick. And now if the Bears play better, they can win this game. But I don't have a lot of confidence in the Bears after they barely beat Green Bay against Malik Willis. So I'm going to take the Packers to pull the upset. Vegas seems to agree with me, but the majority of Draft Utopia does have the Bears winning. This is the first game we disagree on. Packers, they're not great in terms of pass defense, but they don't turn the ball. Well, they're not great in terms of generating turnovers, but they're a top 6 pass defense. They don't turn the ball over. And I do think these are the 2 best NFC teams. I genuinely believe the winner of this game is the favorite to win this conference. I'm not as high on the NFC this year compared to previous seasons, Joey. Seattle, I feel like, due to implode. The Eagles, complete team on paper, but I have zero confidence in their offensive coordinator through this 4-game stretch now that Kellen Moore's gone. You look at the Rams, I feel like the Rams lack a cornerback 1. And that's really, they could get to the NFC title, but not having that cornerback 1 will be what ends up hurting them. And then you look at the Niners, they just have too many injuries despite the marvelous coaching that they've done. So that would be my argument for why the Bears and Packers are the top 2 teams in the conference, Joey. But you got anything you want to add to this before I get to the next game?
Yeah, this game is gonna, to me, who wins the turnover battle. That is what's going to determine this for me. Because the Bears, if they do nothing else incredibly well, they create turnovers. A lot of their points came off short fields. And that's because they get all these turnovers. That's what I say. Everybody says, well, all these quarterbacks are throwing interceptions and these running backs are fumbling. It's like, yeah, because that's what the Bears were coached to do, and they were very good at it. And that creates short fields. And if you got a short field and you got a young quarterback that can hit chunk plays, you're going to get at least 3 points every single time. So you're going to already be 6 to 10 points up if you get 2 turnovers. Whoever wins this turnover battle will probably end up winning this game.
I agree with that too. And I look at the pass defense rankings here. I'm looking at the Packers are 11th in pass defense, and the Bears are 22nd in pass defense. The Jaguars and Bears are outside the top 20 in pass defense. That's the thing. Despite the fact that the Bears and Jags both rank outside the top 20 in pass defense, both teams are number 1 and 2 in the NFL in total turnovers. So they're the only teams in the top 2 in turnovers, the Bears and the Jags. So I think they're also the only teams with a plus 20 turnover differential as well, which is important because if you have a great run defense, but your pass defense is in the bottom of the league in terms of yards allowed and coverage, you need turnovers to compensate for it. And if the Bears and Jags can both get turnovers, they can go on runs. And if they can't, they could both have very early playoff exits. But I think this game and the next game are probably the 2 toughest games to call, Joey. The next game is the Jags and the Bills. I took the Bills have the number 1 pass defense, but the Jags have the number 1 run defense. So the Jags are going to stop James Cook, but I don't know if they can stop Josh Allen. The Bills offense is fully healthy for the first time since week 9 when they played the Chiefs. They're getting Dalton Kincaid back. Josh Palmer's a game time decision, but if he plays, you have your offense at full health, every position for the first time since week 9. And as great as the Jags are, if Allen avoids turnovers and the offense is fully healthy, I think the Bills barely win this game. I've got 28-24, but here's the thing. The Jags have number one run defense, and if they get intercept Allen once or twice and Lawrence wins the turnover battle, the Jags are going to advance. That's the bottom line, Joey. I think we agree on this game that much. Even if we disagree on who's going to win the game, I think we agree that this game, much like Packers-Bears, it's going to come down to who wins the turnover battle.
Yeah, and I don't think people realize that how good the Bills' pass defense was this year. I think they finished the season ranked number 2 in pass defense, if I'm not
They were
mistaken.
first, actually. They were number 1 in pass
They
defense.
they finished number 1. Okay, because I checked.
They were number 1, 156.9, and then 158.5 went to the Vikings, and the Browns finished third. But I believe the Browns were number 1 in pass defense at the mid-season point. I could be wrong on that.
No, it was for most of the season. It was the Browns 1, the Bills 2, and I think the Vikings 3.
I think heading into the Patriots stretch, the Browns were 1 in pass defense and the Falcons were 2. But then the Falcons, they had injuries at corner and they imploded and fell to 13th.
Yeah, because I know the Falcons were top 5, but I didn't think they were number 2.
They were
but
number 2.
Either way,
the Patriots at the beginning of the year, but Terrell got injured after that game, and they ended up dropping to 13th as Terrell was recovering from his injury. And after Terrell came back, then Mike Hughes got injured. And then D. Alford got injured in different corners. Billy Bowman, the nickel corner, got placed on IR. I think those injuries caused the Falcons to plummet from 2 to 13. But when they were healthy, they were right up there with the Browns as the number 2 pass defense.
Yeah, and that, I think, and this goes back to our first podcast when I gave the Vikings the corner safety, and that proves how good the pass rush and how much the pass rush actually means to a pass rating. And the Bills have a very good pass rush. So I'm looking at this, and I think this is a hard game for me to pick. I'm sure it's a hard game for you guys to pick too.
It was
because
I was debating between. I initially had the Jags winning, but I looked at a few things. I looked at the fact that I don't have any confidence in the Jags corners with Campbell gone, with Hunter gone, with Jordan Lewis gone. If Allen's got a fully healthy offense, and the Bills have never lost a wild card game under Brad Allen. On the flip side, they have not won a wild card game on the road in 33 years. So that's why this game feels like a double-edged sword, Joey, because
doesn't this really make the Jags look that much worse for trading Tyson Campbell to the Browns mid-season? Because now you're against the Bills and you just traded your best corner.
Have no injuries. If Josh Palmer's cleared, this will be the first game since Week 9 against the Chiefs where their offense is fully healthy. And that's a very important distinction. The Chiefs game, I think Kincaid got injured in Week 10, missed the rest of the regular season, but now he's cleared to play.
Yeah, that is a tough place to be for the Jags, and I think that's ultimately what's going to cost them the game, is that because
they might win this game, but I don't think they're going to make a run to the Super Bowl because, even if they get by the Patriots, they're going to be playing an angry, pissed-off Broncos team that lost to them in the regular season. And B, if they do play the Patriots, I'll get into the Patriots later, but right now, the only position
what's going to cost them the game is general managers' moves from the draft to the end of the season. Those moves may help them in the future, but for this season, it may have cost them a lengthy playoff run.
Because you look at the Patriots are getting a lot of guys back. They're getting Jared Wilson back. They're getting Kayshon Boutte back. They're getting Harold Landry Jr. back. Basically, the only position the Patriots do not have at full health right now is nose tackle. Kyrus Tonga's ruled out for this week. His backup, Joshua Farmer, is on IR. But the third string nose tackle, Dean, a lot of people on Twitter were talking about Dean and how he made an impact against the Dolphins starting center. So basically, if the Patriots stay healthy and Dean continues to get better and play at a high level, they're a dark horse to win the AFC. But if Dean struggles against these better centers, like he played the Dolphins starting center, Brewer, he's going to be playing guys like Bozeman, Hainsley, probably if the Jags win. If the Jags don't win, you're looking at the Texans center or Zach Frazier or the Steelers, maybe, if the Steelers win. So really, I think the Patriots making a run to the Super Bowl comes down to, can they get either healthier at nose tackle, or can Dean, their third string guy, who I'll get into later, can he complement a healthy Barmore and a healthy Milton Williams? But I did take the Bills 28-24, but I do think the Jags can win. And I initially had the Jags winning this game. So what does that tell you? That I flipped from the Jags to the Bills. What does that tell you? It tells you I'm not very confident in either team, but I do think, if Lawrence can outduel Allen and win the turnover battle, I do think the Jags can win this. And this was a 5-4 split decision game. So this was the only split decision at Draft Utopia this week. That should tell you everything you need to know. All right. The 49ers and the Eagles. Everyone took the Eagles except for Tracy, Daniel Keyser, and Tony Mario. I just think the Niners have too many injuries. But at the same token, I just think the Eagles, I don't trust the Eagles coaching. I think the Eagles are one of the more volatile teams in the NFC. They could get to the NFC Championship if everything clicks, but their offensive coordinator's been a liability all season. It's a replacement for Kellen Moore. But I also believe the Niners the Eagles just have a better team on paper. But what worries me about betting on this game is it started out at -3.5 for Philly on Monday. It's bumped all the way up to -6 as the weeks progressed. And this is the only game where the point spread has increased throughout the wild card round. Every other point spread that was posted on Monday has stayed exactly the same leading up to kickoff. This is the only game where the point spreads either moved up or down. And I like the Eagles 21-17 in a defensive game. Give me the under, and I think the Niners cover the spread. But I just think the Eagles are that much better than the Niners, unfortunately. And I think most of our staff took the Eagles. And I think William took the Niners. He's a Niners fan. But Daniel and Tracy's thought process for picking the Niners was simple. Even though they have a ton of injuries at linebacker, with Fred Warner out, D. Winters out, and Nick Martin out, they have Eric Kendricks at middle linebacker. And Tracy's thought process is Eric Kendricks is going to shut down Saquon Barkley. And I agree with Tracy. If the Niners want to make any sort of run in the NFC this year, Eric Kendricks is going to have to be the catalyst, and he's going to have to keep running backs in check. And that's really what a Niners run comes down to at this point, is Eric Kendricks. Because if you get to the NFC Championship, you could get Fred Warner back. But right now, you are going to need Kendricks to dominate this week and next week if you make the divisional round, if you're going to go on any type of run. Because right now, if the Niners win, you are playing the Seahawks more than likely. And if the Packers and Niners both win, you're going on the road to the Carolina-LA Rams winner. And I think Kendricks can string a good game. But I also feel like with Keon White out, top 3 edge rushers in San Francisco are out. So it's going to be Bryce Huff, Yetur Gross-Matos going after the Eagles. Lane Johnson's back. I just think I think Mailata and Lane Johnson can stop Bryce Huff and Gross-Matos. Even if the Eagles' offensive coordinator comes up with a shitty game plan, I think those 2 tackles can give Hurts enough time to make the right reads. And the Eagles will do just enough to win. What am I missing, Joey? Or what is a detail I could add to make this report better? Okay, my audio stopped working for some reason. No, my audio is working. All right. What?
Sorry, I'm trying to type a thing here. What was the question?
I just went through the details, all the key matchups. What details do you think I missed, or is there something you'd like to add to the Eagles-Niners write-up?
I don't think you missed much. I just think that right now the 49ers their staff are hot topics. I think the 49ers staff is all playing for something. I think the Eagles are just more talented right now. The big thing we're going to have to look at is which Eagles quarterback shows up.
Yep, the Eagles are the better team on paper. I think the Niners can cover the spread if they outcoach the Eagles. I just think the Eagles are a better team, and they're going to win straight up just because of that. But I do believe if the Eagles offensive coordinator comes up with a lackluster game plan, the Niners can cover. And I agree with Tracy. If the Niners are going to steal this, they need Kendricks to step up. He's got to stop Barkley. All right. Next up, it is Patriots. It's Chargers. I've got the Patriots winning. This was the only lock of the week. And Pro Football Focus posted the Chargers offensive line grades. Basically, every lineman on the Chargers is a PFF grade of under 70, which I'm not sure how. I am not sure how the Chargers offensive line has been that woeful. I mean, 90 is 90's like a star player, 80's good player, but not necessarily a star. 70's okay, but needs improvement. Every lineman on the Chargers is a PFF grade of under 70. And you remember a team with an offensive line that brutally bad entering the playoffs in your lifetime, Joey? I don't think I remember. This might be the worst offensive line of any team ever in the history of the playoffs since PFF existed. I mean,
maybe in the playoffs, yes.
not
For a second, I thought you were going to say all time, and I'm going to look. So yeah, but yeah, it's. What did you see? What do you? I can agree to that to a point. I didn't see nothing. To a point, but I can agree to that to a point.
Yeah. And Corey Durden, that's the third string nose tackle who got called up from the practice squad, started against Miami and did well. Corey Durden, a lot of people in the Patriots Twitter, they praised him. So if Durden continues to get better, the Patriots are going to be healthy at every position outside of nose tackle. They're starting a third string nose tackle in Corey Durden, but he played well against Miami. So we'll see how he does. But that's really the only position that I think keeps the Patriots from making a Super Bowl run right now, these next 2 weeks, is nose tackle. I'm not saying that we're going to win or we're a lock to win. Honestly, if Herbert wants it more and if Hampton can run the ball on us, we are beatable. Because if you run the ball away from Spillane up the middle, you get by Corey Durden and you get by Christian Ellis, I think there is a way to attack our defense. There's a path to attack New England's defense under Vrabel, but it's going to be a war of attrition. And if Vrabel figures out that you figured out the weakness to his defense, he's going to make the proper adjustments. And that's where this gets challenging for the Chargers. And even if you run it past Ellis, they've got Marty Mapu, Jack Gibbons for depth. So that's where this gets challenging.
And you also have to remember, last year in Cleveland, Vrabel had to kind of expand his horizons a little bit. He ended up being offensive line coach. He was working in front office things. So Vrabel right now may be the most underrated coach in terms of his overall expertise, just because he took that year off and he was faced with challenges that he hadn't been faced with before. So in that sense, Vrabel may be more equipped as a Patriots coach than he ever was with the Titans coach. And that makes him dangerous because how many coaches are going to be able to look at the offensive line and say, well, I coached that linebacker. Oh, I played and coached that. Oh, defense line. I played and coached that. I worked with quarterbacks. I've done everything around here. And I'm freaking Mike Vrabel. So what are you going to do about it?
This is also the healthiest the Patriots have been since they beat the New York Jets in Week 11, 28-14. Just throwing that out there.
And that's also a thing because remember, as much as talent matters this time of year, coaching matters just as much as anything, if not more, because you need that one guy who, when things break down and things look gloomy, can look over there and say, I know that, I can diagnose that, I can do this, I know my guys, and I know they can do this, and put them in positions that they normally wouldn't put their guys in by taking the chances that they know their guys can do something, but during the regular year, they didn't do it. Mike Vrabel's that guy. And I think that year off helped Mike Vrabel as much as anything, because I think Mike Vrabel was getting a little burned out there. And I think that year off really, and allowing him to go right back to coaching rather than dealing with all the other stuff, I think that helped him more than anything. And I think that's maybe why the Patriots win this game, because Vrabel is going to be more ready than any other coach in the AFC playoffs this year.
I agree with that. I've got the Patriots winning 28-17. This is the only game that I have where a team wins by more than one score. And look, the Patriots, they offensively, they have a lot of pieces. I mean, we have not seen Diggs, Booty, and Douglas have all, I think Booty, Douglas both won player of the game once. Diggs, I think, did in week 5. Kyle Williams, Washington State receiver, he's been able to make big plays as he's been a situational number 4, but he's been able to make big plays with Mac Hollins on IR, and Efton Chisholm III came back right as Hollins went on IR. He's been able to make, he had a touchdown in each, he had 2 touchdowns, and what McDaniels has done is brilliant. He's only used Williams and Chisholm situationally, but he's picked the right time to use them to throw the defense off, and it's worked. And teams haven't been able to adjust to that thought process on McDaniels' end. So not only do you have to deal with Vrabel's defensive adjustments, you got to deal with McDaniels' offensive adjustments, and it's a lethal combination. I think there might be 1 or 2 teams in the AFC that has an answer to it. And I don't know if those teams are going to get far enough to play New England. I think one of those teams is Buffalo, and I think the other is Denver. So I think those are the only 2 teams that may have.
I think Denver, because remember, Denver outside of New England might have the best coaching staff in the AFC playoffs right now. And I think, and 2 of Denver's coaches, their defense coordinator and quarterback coach, are both getting head coaching interviews. So they may be able to at least, maybe not match New England, but at least put up a heck of a fight when it comes to the coaching matchup against New England.
Exactly. And then the final game is the Monday night game, Texans-Steelers. I have got the Texans winning, but at the same token, I think the Steelers cover. On Monday, 79% of the betting action was on the Texans. Only 21% was on the Steelers, and the Texans have adjusted. The Steelers now have more betting action on them than the Steelers have cut down the Texans' betting action from 79% to 67%. I have the Texans winning a defensive game 21-20. I think the Steelers cover the spread. The fact that there's so much money coming in on the Texans, I think the Steelers cover. The official Craig Rolstad, the Steelers have won more games under Rolstad than the Texans, but I just think the Texans are a better team than the Steelers. They are the only AFC team with 2 sack artists in Daniel Hunter and Will Anderson, 2 guys with double-digit sacks. They're the only team in the NFL, actually, that has that. 2 double-digit sack guys this year. They're the only team that has that. Broderick Jones suffered a season-ending injury against the Bears in Week 13. So I think the Texans just have the Steelers' number. As good as Aaron Rodgers is, I just think the Texans have their number. And the only way I see the Steelers winning this game is if Rodgers is perfect or the officials just job Houston.
I'm ticked off at the Steelers right now. And it is a very legitimate ticked off. And this has nothing to do with fandom. This is me looking at the last 2 regular season games for the Steelers and saying, you threw the game against the Browns because you didn't, if you're Aaron Rodgers, because you didn't want to be the one on that Myles Garrett sack record. It is well known for that. And then you come into Baltimore, should have already clinched, but instead you have to rely on a missed field goal to get into the playoffs. You could have clinched 2 weeks earlier, and then you damn near blew it again.
There were reports that the Steelers were going to fire Tomlin if Loop had made the kick. So this was a kick that was going to cause one of the coaches to lose their job, regardless of who lost their job. That's how close this was.
Still may get fired if they don't win this game. And the only reason that is even in discussion is because he allowed Aaron Rodgers to throw a game because he did not want his name beside being the guy that, hey, you know what? Myles Garrett broke the sack record against me. That pisses me off because these guys are supposed to be competitors. These are supposed to be competitors looking for this. And they just lost that competitive edge because they didn't want to be on the other side of a record book. That pisses me off.
The other thing that people aren't going to acknowledge. Here's the other thing people aren't going to acknowledge, Joey. Kyle Hamilton's injury changed the momentum of that game. Kyle Hamilton's injury in the third quarter of that Steelers-Ravens game, that injury to Kyle Hamilton, that changed the momentum of the game. If Kyle Hamilton does not go down, the Ravens win. The Ravens win if Kyle Hamilton does not go get injured because the Steelers were down 10-7, I believe, in the third quarter. And Kyle Hamilton gets injured in the third quarter, doesn't return to the game. That gives the Steelers that extra mismatch they need to carve the Ravens' defense, and it changes the momentum of the game.
Now, if you want me to get analytical on it, though, without DK Metcalf, we saw something, a very major kink in the Steelers' armor. I looked at the Steelers' wide receiving core, and I said, these guys are no better than the Titans wide receiver core. They're no better than the Browns wide receiver core. The entire thing that I looked at and I saw, Aaron Rodgers has trouble throwing down the sidelines. Guess what? He had DK Metcalf. Those other wide receivers, not great. What was the difference between them and everything else? DK Metcalf. Metcalf made the Steelers offense look massively better than they are. Yes. And then without him, they were exposed. Aaron Rodgers showed his age. Those wide receivers proved they couldn't get the job done and were one of the worst wide receiving cores in the NFL without him. And maybe even the worst. Now,
receiver to the number 7. Now Valdez-Scantling and Thielen are your number 2, number 3, and that's not going to cut it. You're going to need more weapons next to Metcalf.
And we saw it at the end of the Browns game when they threw it to Scantling 3 times against Denzel Ward. When DJ Metcalf, you saying he can't win 33% of the time? Oh, he's going to win one of those. Scantling got his ass kicked 3 times.
Yeah.
That shows you how valuable DK Metcalf is. Yeah. Is they tried to do something they knew would work if you had Metcalf, but did not work in the least without him. And the other guys could not step up.
Yep.
And that just shows how valuable DK Metcalf is. And I think that DK Metcalf's absence vaulted him up in the ranks of NFL wide receivers, because we look around now and we say, this Steelers wide receiving core is pedestrian, and Aaron Rodgers is not that good at this age. without DK Metcalf. So I think that made DK Metcalf even more valuable because now we're seeing it,
I
what life
agree.
is without him.
This Texans defense is really good. Not only are they the only defense with 2 edge rushers to get 10 sacks, there were only 2 teams to have their number 1 and number 2 corner win player of the game on Draft Utopia this year. One of those teams was the Seahawks. The other was the Houston Texans, with Stingley and Lassiter both winning player of the game. So the Seahawks and the Texans were the only 2 teams in the league to have their number 1 and number 2 corners win player of the game at least once through a 17-game season. So, I mean, you could take it with a grain of salt, but I think the matchup favors the Texans, and only one person took the Steelers. It was Oren. Everyone else took the Texans. So, and Tony Mario agreed with me on all 6 games, which is just, so I can't, Wes agreed with me on 5 games. Kerm, I think, only disagreed with me on 2 games. So I'm pretty much stuck in, I'm tied with Oren for 4th, and Oren and I disagreed on 3 games. So whoever gets 2 of those 3 games between Jags, Bills, Packers, Bears, and Texans, Steelers moves into 4th place. It's that simple, and sets up for an exciting wild card week. The divisional round, how do I think the divisional round is going to go? Well, I've got the Packers beating Seattle. I just don't, for some reason, I don't trust Seattle. I think Darnold's going to throw a ton of picks. He's going to have a worse playoff game than Ryan Tannehill against the Bengals. That's just the vibe I'm getting. And I think the Packers get to the NFC Championship. And then the next game would be Broncos-Bills in my scenario. And I've got the Broncos winning that. As great as the Bills are, Mile High is a motherfucker to play in that weather. And as great as Josh Allen is, with these weapons, with how bad the run defense has been, I just think the matchup, the coaching matchup with Sean Payton winning a ring and the altitude and Denver's defense, Bo Nix, it feels like a game that could go to, it's going to be like the Ravens-Broncos game in 2013, except the Broncos are going to win this time around because they're going to be able to play physical against Josh Allen. They're not going to get flagged for it. They're going to be able to play physical against Allen's receivers and coverage, whether it's Surtain or Riley Moss or McMillan, and they're going to be able to get away with it. So I think the Broncos beat the Bills. Patriots play the Jags. I like the Patriots in that matchup. Well, Patriots will play either the Jags or the Texans. I do think the Texans have a better chance of knocking out New England than someone like Jacksonville, but at the same token, I just think Drake May, he started his coaching career with the Texans. Yes, he was the Titans head coach, but he started his coaching career as the Texans defensive coordinator. And as great as DeMeco Ryans is, I just feel like the Patriots want it more. It's not that the Texans don't want it. They want to get over that funk too, but I feel like, you know, with the Patriots, they're just going to try to run the ball in Houston's run defense. Azeez Al-Shahir, the defensive tackles. The Texans have 5 defensive tackles on IR, Joey, and I just think the fully healthy Patriots offensive line, that's going to matter. And I think the Patriots will probably only beat the Texans by a field goal, but because of the Texans' injuries at defensive tackle, they've got 5 defensive tackles on IR. They've got 4 safeties on IR. Basically, their only healthy safety, I think, is Kalen Bullock, and every other safety and backup safety is on IR. And that's going to matter. And I think they have got a few corners on IR as well. So I think those injuries, the depth players that the Texans have the starters to beat the Patriots, but the depth players being on IR is going to be what keeps them from beating the Patriots. But I think they only lose to New England by a field goal. If they can get May to commit multiple turnovers, they've got a chance to beat the Patriots. But I just think too much is working in New England's favor right now. I think we're heading for a New England-Denver AFC championship. And then the Rams-Eagles in Philly, I have got the Eagles beating the Rams. Again, I mean, the Eagles and Packers are literally the only 2 opponents I can't see the Rams beating. But I think they can handle anyone else in the NFC. So if the Rams end up getting the Seahawks and the Bears end up getting the Eagles, then I think in that scenario, the Rams are more equipped to make a run to the Super Bowl. But we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, I've got Packers, Eagles for my NFC title, and my AFC title. I have the Broncos and Patriots. It's pretty simple. But yeah, Joey, what do you think's going to happen? Who do you think's going to make the conference title games? I know you've got Jags, Patriots, and you've got Bears playing the Eagles, and your bracket's a little bit different from mine, but I feel like we have the same AFC championship with New England and Denver. I have no idea what you're thinking for the NFC, though.
Okay, you're breaking up there for a second. Can you repeat my matchups?
All right, your matchups, you've got Patriots, Jags, and New England, and you got Broncos, Texans. I feel like we both have New England and Denver in the AFC. For the NFC,
Yeah,
I don't know.
New England, Denver.
We both have New England, Denver in the AFC title. Okay. Now, for the NFC, you've got the Eagles playing the Bears and the Rams playing the Seahawks. So I'm just curious who you got winning those games.
Okay, Bears beat the Eagles. Okay. And who plays Seahawks again in my run?
The Rams, Seattle.
Rams. It'd be Rams in Chicago.
I think whoever wins whoever plays Seattle, whether it's the Rams or the Packers, is going to knock the Seahawks out. We seem to agree on that. But yeah, you've got the Bears beating the Packers, so yeah. All right. Usually, we would announce the AFC champion before we announce the NFC champion. But since we agree on the AFC and we don't agree on the NFC, maybe we'll go in reverse this time. I don't know. I'm going Broncos over Patriots, but this is temporary. I believe it's going to be Packers Broncos in the Super Bowl at this point, but that's only because of the Patriots' injuries at nose tackle. If we find out Tonga and Farmer are both back and you can keep Corey Durden for depth, that'll be enough for me to switch to New England, because from a talent standpoint, from a narrative standpoint, Denver storyline standpoint, New England, Green Bay makes more sense because Mike Vrabel, they began coaching together in Tennessee on the Titans. Josh McDaniels, he coached Josh Jacobs when he's with the Raiders. Now he's coaching Stevenson. He's coaching Drake May. He's coaching, and Jordan Love is a 7 seed versus Drake May, who I think deserves the MVP. That would be cinema for me. So I'd love to see a Packers-Patriots Super Bowl, but unless the Patriots get at least one of their 2 nose tackles healthy, I don't see Corey Durden. I don't see the Patriots going into Denver and winning if Corey Durden's the starting nose tackle. If we get Tonga or Farmer back, because Farmer is eligible to come off IR that week, and Tonga's missed the last 2 weeks. If one of them comes back for the AFC Championship, I think the Patriots win. But since both of them are currently injured, I'm going to go with the Broncos as my tentative AFC Championship. And the key word here is tentative, because I think it is that even, Joey. And I think the Patriots do have the talent to win the AFC, but I think they need one of those 2 nose tackles, Tonga or Farmer, to come back and replace Corey Durden as the starter while their starters stay healthy for me.
I think it would be tentatively, I would look at Denver versus Chicago from this bracket. I think the Patriots need another year of learning how to win. You just don't go from 3 wins or 4 wins to 11 wins to the Super Bowl and automatically know everything.
Yeah. As much as I want to pick the Patriots, the realist in me is saying unless Tonga and Farmer come back in your situation, you'd probably say in order for the Patriots to make this a game and potentially steal it, they need both of them healthy for Denver, because this is Denver. This is a place where Tom Brady failed to win.
This is a tough place. This is you got a Hall of Fame coach. You got one of the best defenses in football. You get a very good offensive line. You've got a quarterback who nobody believed in, who has been coached up to be a very good professional quarterback who's not going to make a lot of mistakes. I mean, this is going to be tough for New England. So I think New England's going to need one more year to, get the pieces in place, maybe get used to being with they got a lot of young guys, maybe get used to being on that pedestal. Because right now they're running on time.
I think they either need Tonga back at full health, Farmer back at full health for this game, or they need some key player on Denver to get injured in the divisional round. And I don't want that to happen as a fan, but they need some type of break like that to go their way to tip the scales, just for them to have a landslide edge over the Broncos. I know William has the Patriots in the Super Bowl. I think Lisa sent me a Super Bowl bracket email, and she's got the Patriots and Bears. William had the Patriots and Niners in the Super Bowl. I'd love to see my Patriots in the Super Bowl. I don't think they're going to beat Denver. I don't think they match up well against Denver. Not just from a weather standpoint, but from a historical standpoint, the Broncos have always had our number the same way we've always had the Jags number. And I think that's going to matter when it comes to a game of this magnitude, like the AFC Championship. Peyton's been to the Super Bowl, Vrabel hasn't. That also plays a role in this. Not only does Denver have the healthiest AFC team right now, they have home field, and their coach has been to the Super Bowl, and Vrabel hasn't. Do I think Vrabel can get the Patriots to a Super Bowl? Yes. But it'll probably be in 4 years when Nashville hosts the Super Bowl. It's not going to be right now. As much as I'd love it to be right now, it's not going to be right now. And the realist in me knows that. The fan in me, as much as the fan in me wants to fight the realist in me knows that the Patriots are more likely to win a Super Bowl in like 3 to 4 years, Phil, when Nashville's new indoor stadium hosts the Super Bowl and we get more talent versus right now. Joey agrees with me on that, but he's not guaranteeing a championship for my Patriots either.
This is the NFL. There are no guarantees.
Exactly.
The only thing there is evaluation and expectation. And then let the games figure themselves out. There are no guarantees in the NFL.
Yeah. Exactly. And the Bears, I think the Packers-Bears winner is your NFC champion. The fact that Joey has the Bears in the Super Bowl against Denver, I agree with. And I do have Sean Payton getting the Super Bowl, but I just don't think the NFL is going to let him get another Super Bowl ring after Bountygate. So if the Broncos are in the Super Bowl, I'm automatically picking the NFC champion, regardless of who it is.
I don't think that Bountygate is going to matter too much at this point, because if the NFL really cared, they would have blacklisted him. They got Williams, they got their pound of flesh, and then they moved on. Because remember, the NFL will blacklist people if they do something that they don't like. And so I don't think that's going to be a thing, because they didn't do anything like that with Peyton. And it may be a thing of Sean Payton is too much of a cultural figure to do anything with, because he's not only someone who's known for building up football teams, he's someone who's known for building up communities. They're not going to punish him for that, because he makes the league too much money. He's one of them. He's one of the insiders. And if you're one of the insiders, the NFL is going to protect you at all costs.
Well, what if we get a Bears Super Bowl? Caleb Williams fumbles the ball like Cam Newton, but he picks it up and he throws a game-winning touchdown. And the Bears end up getting what the Panthers wish they got when Cam Newton lost Super Bowl 50 to Peyton Manning. What if that's the way the Super Bowl ends, Joey? I just wanted to throw out that hypothetical before you crown your champion.
It's possible. I mean, that's kind of something Mendoza tried to do last night and ended up getting sacked for a 20-yard loss. But he tried it.
Yeah. So, who is your de facto champion for this season?
This is tough, because I would have to say, if it turned out like this, I'd have to say the Bears because of the turnover situation.
Yeah.
And I think the Bears would find a way to get a turnover in an important spot because that's kind of what they do.
Yeah, I just got a comment in the chat room. You and Joey seem to agree on a lot of sports predictions as of late. We didn't agree on this one, but I pretty much said the Bears Packers winner would get to the Super Bowl. And we both have the winner of the Bears Packers game beating the Broncos in the Super Bowl. We both had the Oilers beating Florida in the Stanley Cup, and then Joey pivoted to Florida as they repeated. We both had Dallas winning this year's Stanley Cup. We both had the Bengals winning the Super Bowl this year. We disagreed on the NBA Finals. I had Lakers over. I think I had Lakers over Magic or Lakers over Bucks. And then I said the Cavs would lose in the conference finals. Joey had Cavs over Lakers. So we have disagreed on a few things, but when we disagreed on sports predictions as of recently, it's been splitting hairs more than anything else. I mean, our thought process has been similar with a lot of recent predictions. That's not always the case. It varies from year to year, and it varies from sport to sport. But as of recently,
this year has been an interesting year. The AFC has been pretty chaotic, but at the same time, the playoffs are pretty straight line. And I think anybody will tell you that. Our predictions are maybe different in some areas, but when it comes to the playoffs, you only have 4 games, 6 games a week. I mean, there's not, and there are going to be some games, especially in the first round, that are, you pretty much know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not as difficult. During the season, if you want to see us disagree, it's usually more during the seasons when everything is still up in the air.
Yeah.
Because a lot more can happen during the season. Once you get to the playoffs or look at playoff predictions and such, you're looking at a very small group. And when you get to that very small group, there is more room for agreement. I mean, you can just look at all the picks that we had. A lot of us, the 8 of us that were on there, we had quite a few that were,
Actually,
5 and 6
on there, but
yeah, we had 5 or 6 of us.
This season, currently in the top 30 nationally. Wes is first in the country with a 2-game lead over Reagan Holgate. At Kerm's third. Tony Mario and I, we were tied for 9th last week. We're tied for 8th in the country. So we've got 5 of the top 10, which is insane. And then even though you and William are 29th and 30th, you're 29th and 30th out of 90 people in the country. So I consider that a success and just a testament to how strong our team's been this season. Overall, this decade, too. I mean, we've had, I think the only year we weren't first was last year. Kerm finished a game out of first behind Matt Bowen of ESPN and Emmy Bannell. That's it. That's the only year we weren't number 1 in the country this decade, or we had, because it was, I think Lisa finished first, Wes finished first, I finished first twice. It's just luck, I guess. It's prep work, it's luck, it's skill, it's coaching, it's depth charts, it's a lot of different things. I don't really want to get into a rant about this. I told my mom we'd end the show at noon. We could end the show now, but I'm going to let you talk about the coaching. You've been good. We've gotten through all our topics pretty quickly. If William shows up, we can change gears, let him talk about what he wants. But we've pretty much knocked everything out for today. So it's like, if you want to talk about some coaching hires, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, coaching hires not too much, but the coaching search is interesting. Todd Monken, the Browns have given Todd Monken an interview, and he's the only person Browns are the only team that gave him an interview. And there's also rumors that the Browns could offer Jim Harbaugh $100 million. Kevin Stefanski he interviewed with the Ravens, but I've heard that the Ravens are zeroing in on Brian Flores. So I'm not sure how far that'll go, but if that happens, expect that one quick.
That makes sense because I heard Harbaugh, according to Tony Grossi, Harbaugh had two demands. He wants $20 million a year, and he wants to pick the GM out. If both those things are true, that leaves Atlanta or Miami as the only teams that could hire him.
Well,
And Thomas
not
Coburn told me that
exactly,
Steve Ross
because
is
remember,
cheap to hire
the
Harbaugh.
Browns do have that chief strategy officer position that was vacated that still remains empty. They're the only team in the NFL with that position. So they could always just plop Barry up because, from what I understand, that's a position that Jimmy Haslam may want to put Barry in after the draft anyway. So,
Well, if they basically bring a guy that Harbaugh wants in and pluck Barry up, he might take the Browns offer, and if he doesn't, then I think you're looking at Atlanta.
and
I agree with Thomas Coburn that Stephen Ross is too cheap to give
Stephen Ross ain't
John
doing
Harbaugh
shit.
what he wants.
A cheapskate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even though the Dolphins don't have a head coach or GM, Stephen
They
Ross
do
is
have a
too cheap
GM.
to give.
They just hired a GM.
Stephen Ross is too cheap to give John Harbaugh $20 million and the GM he wants. He's too cheap to do that.
Yeah.
I agree with Coburn on that completely.
Well, not only that, but they just hired a GM. So that
they hired the Packers. I didn't realize they hired him yesterday, but they did.
Yeah.
They hired Packers assistant GM, I believe.
Yeah, somebody from either Packers GM or Packers head of vice president of scouting, or
director of football operations, someone within that vicinity.
Yeah. And
so I think Harbaugh's either going to the Falcons or the Browns. I think the Giants want Harbaugh, but Harbaugh's going to say, fire Joe Schoen or I'm not coming to the Giants, and they're going to settle on.
The Giants are interesting because the Giants originally wanted Kevin Stefanski before Kevin Stefanski was fired, but at the same time, they got a list of like 25 people that they made public, which is, if you want one guy, why are you making a list of 25? And then Harbaugh came available, and they suddenly were sending people out to have dinner with Harbaugh, only to figure out that Harbaugh wouldn't meet with anybody until next week. That he's not even setting anything up. So the Giants are a weird thing they've got going here. And I spent a week trying to figure out what they're doing, and I can't figure out what they're doing because, quite frankly, I don't think they know what they're doing. And
I heard the Ravens loved Kubiak yesterday. He crushed it in their interview. That's what I heard. So
yeah, Clint Kubiak is a big one. I texted you the other day. The Packers defensive coordinator is really emerging.
It just depends on who they want. That's kind of where I'm at with the Ravens.
Yes, the Packers defensive coordinator has 3 NFC spots set up and 2 interviews with AFC teams that turned out to be, I did find out it was the Titans and Browns. And the other 3, he's got one for the Giants. He's got one for Atlanta.
Yep.
And there's one more that he has set up for interview. So that's the Packers defensive coordinator, who is a hot commodity right now, as is, I mentioned during the podcast, Chris Shula, who has, I think, 3 or 4 interviews lined up for the Rams as the Rams defensive coordinator.
Pick up Bryce Young's 5th-year option. They break the news today before the game against the Rams. They could have waited till the offseason to do this, but they decided to announce it today for showmanship, I guess, by Dave Tepper. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe a vote of confidence. Who knows? But the coaching search is getting really interesting. So that is going to be fun to watch over the next week. Because I think during next week, everything's going to fall into place pretty quickly. I think after Harbaugh falls, everybody else will fall into place. So we'll see how that works on.
I agree. I think the first 2 dominoes to fall are going to be where Harbaugh lands and who the Ravens hire. And then everything else is going to fall. That's kind of how I expected because when I talked with Emmanuel Watson on Sportshead Radio last week, I told him wherever Harbaugh goes and whoever the Ravens was the coaching cycle, and then everything else is going to fall into place.
And don't forget that, another thing for Harbaugh is he was the one with the Ravens that wanted Shedeur Sanders, and his entire family are Browns fans because he was born in Toledo and his mother is from North Cleveland. Or not North Cleveland, East Cleveland. His mother's from East Cleveland. And I will say this, congratulations to his mother for surviving East Cleveland. That place is, no, just stay away. So congratulations to his mother for surviving that mess. I mean, we all thank you, even though it was 80 some years ago. East Cleveland is still a little shaky then. So congratulations for that one. But that's another thing. And Harbaugh is 63. Passion projects, man. Because at this point, he's just looking for the money, looking for the passion project. I mean, it's all there. So there is that to consider as well.
I agree.
Could you imagine your family's nothing but a fan of one sports team, and then you get to go home saying, I turned our favorite team around. It's like you see bragging rights in your family for the next 6 generations. I mean, that would be, I don't know if he would, but I know I'd hold it over my family if I did that. So that would be a thing for me. But, maybe he has other priorities and, getting raised up on a throne by his family. But that's just me.
Yep. And what else am I working on? I've got the simulator updated. Up 50 players. I've got like 20 other players looking at 51. I'll quickly read through the list. I've got Bo Stevens, Bray Hubbard. He hasn't made a decision. Bray Hubbard may declare he may go back. Chris Brazzell, the second, has declared. Emmanuel Pregnan, the Oregon left guard, probably not going to put him at 51. Jaden Roberts, Motton, Justin Jolly, he's going to be at the Senior Bowl. NC State tight end. Cage Casey, Boise State left tackle, projected to be a day 2 pick. Keontae Scott, I know Scott's 24. I know he's Auburn's nickel corner last year. Him and OJ Frederique have made magic on the Miami Hurricanes. And Scott had the pick 6 against Ohio State, so he's in consideration at 51. He's in consideration because he's killed it in the playoff. KC Conception of Texas A&M. Why? Well, the NFL Draft Advisory Committee apparently gave him a first-round grade. He's got second to third round production, but I'm very tempted to put him in that 51 slot. Mark Fletcher, Miami running backs in that conversation. Michael Taffy, Red Murdoch of Buffalo, Skylar Bell of Connecticut, Tacario Davis of Washington, and Terry Moore of Duke. So I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do we, if we're ranking these players 51 to 70, where do we rank the players? So yeah, we're going to have a third round grade on Ty Simpson, but if Dante Moore goes back, the lowest we would have Simpson's at 70. And even if we had him at 70, he still might go in the first round because one person said that all 32 NFL GMs have a first on Simpson. So it doesn't matter if you have a third round grade on the player if all 32 GMs have a first round grade on the player. That's really the big thing with talent evaluations. We'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting to see. And Matt Ryan's been named the president of football operations. Am I working on any articles? Besides Draft Utopia, I am starting something for my other company I work at, Draft Prospect Hockey. I'm starting a mid-season top 31. Basically, every player that made my first round NHL mock on Draft Utopia, we're going back, we're looking at where they're at the mid-season point of their NHL draft eligible season. So Gavin McKenna, Keon Verhoff, they're both still 1 and 2 on my board. Ivar Stenberg's a top player in Sweden. Apparently, one rumor I've heard is that the Dallas Stars do have Stenberg at number 1 on their board, but they don't have a pick until the second round this year, so they're not going to be in play for Stenberg. But if the 3-time NHL GM of the year has a Swedish guy in Stenberg at number 1 in his board, maybe that's a sign that you should draft him. I don't know. Just throwing that out there. That's all I'm at on that article. I think Ryan Lynn was my preseason number 4 player. I'll quickly check Lynn's stats. I know the David Blow was an offensive coordinator hire. Ryan Lynn had 60 points Ryan Lynn had 53 points in 60 games last year. He's already at 50 points in 40 games. So I'm just curious where Lynn ranks in most draft rankings. I had him at 4 in the preseason. Okay, so there's one other scouting service that has him at 4, but a lot of the scouting services have dropped Ryan Lynn as low as 12. Some have, I think, Daily Faceoff, Frank Cervalli has him at 6, and Draft Prospects Hockey Company, Anthony, my boss runs, has him at 8. So I had him at 4 at the beginning of the year. I still think he's a first-round defenseman. The fact that he's pretty much improved his point total from last year in a fewer amount of games. He was 5'11", 175. He's grown an inch. He's at 6 foot now. So that definitely helps. But the plus-minus ratio has dropped from +11 to -11. So that's probably why other draft boards have him dropping slightly. I'm not going to go through all these hockey rankings. It would ruin the fun for all the readers at Draft Prospect Hockey. And I don't want to bore Joey to... Oh, here we go. Ryan Lynn has been named the captain of the Vancouver Giants. This is as of 14 hours ago. 100 points in 100 career games. He had 53 points as a rookie, 50 points this year. So yes, Ryan Lynn's been promoted to captain. That is breaking news from the Vancouver Giants. And that's ironic because Ryan Lynn was a preseason top 5 pick. So him getting promoted to captain might actually keep him in the running to go 4th overall, especially if a team needs a defenseman, because there's like 6 or 7 first-line defensemen in this draft. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see. I know I'm excited about the Guardians-Braves game on NBC, Joey. That is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to air right after the Masters, so you're going to have the final day of the Masters. I know you're not a big golf guy, but Masters is the biggest golf tournament in the world. And then after the final day of the Masters, Guardians-Braves airs on NBC. I think NBC pretty much nailed that. They said, we'll put a Sunday night baseball game on right after the Masters, and they literally picked the best matchup possible. So I am definitely going to watch that game. That's April 12th, by the way, so if you want the exact day. But I still need to make a WNBA mock and an MLB mock. I haven't had time with football season with the draft simulator, but I've had a good week. Yeah. Anything you want to add before I sign off on TalkShoe and Restream? Because I'm about ready to sign off on both. We got everything knocked out earlier than I expected, which is good because my mom could arrive anytime between noon and 12:30, so it's good that we knocked everything out early today. I didn't think it would go this smoothly, but I'm happy it did. So we'll see you guys next week on Restream for the divisional round updates, and hopefully William's feeling better. All right.